In a world where remasters populate the landscape of the game industry, and with the upcoming release of Life is Strange Remastered, we need to delve into what makes a good remaster experience for every sort of player, whether new or old, while still honouring the originals. Hello and welcome to the Echoverse Unlimited Show. It's me, your host, TheTwistedEcho, coming at you with another episode, and this is based on Remastered. There's so many nowadays, and I wanted to go into what makes a good one, what makes a bad one, and most importantly, are they a good experience? Do we need them in society? Should we have them in society, or especially in this industry? And I wanted to explore all the different remasters that have sort of come out recently, and to see what makes, whether they're successes, whether they're bad, and it's just we're going to go through that. So yeah, we're going to start with my favorite remaster, and yeah, let's get to it. Okay, let's start with my favorite remaster, and that is Skyrim Special Edition. No surprises there. If you know me, you know I love Skyrim. I think it's a masterpiece of a game, great story, eh, great characters, great world. Just, I love it to bits. So when I heard in 2016 that a new version of Skyrim was coming out, I was ecstatic. I was so excited. I got it day one release. I went over to a friend's house and we played it together for the first time. And I was so excited. And a big reason for that was mod integration for consoles. It had never been done before. It was something completely new and added so much to the original Skyrim experience that I loved it. It was such a good idea from Bethesda to add that in, and makes the modding community so much more supportive, and bringing them into your fold is a really good move by Bethesda. Also, the graphics were much better. While still looking like the same game. Obviously, you can get mods as well that boost the graphics even further, but some of them can break your game. But it truly was the most definitive experience possible, and it still honored the classic game. I was still getting that nostalgic feeling of when I went into Riverwood for the first time, to when I killed Alduin for the first time as well. So it was a really nostalgic experience, but with meaningful features that I really felt made the game into something special and unique, and I was really happy with it. We're going to come back to Skyrim in a little bit, because there is Bethesda's starting to do something that I'm not very happy with, and I'm sure you can guess what that is if you've been following the Skyrim releases at all. So we're going to cover that in a later section, but for now, my personal favorite remaster, and the one that I would say really is the best of the cream of the crop for doing a good remaster, is Skyrim Special Edition. So well played, Bethesda. You got my vote. Okay, so now we've talked about my personal favorite remaster. I wanted to go into my, how do you call it, categories for what makes a good and successful remaster. I think for a remaster to be worth its weight, you have to have a few different it has to have a few different things to make it successful. So the first one we're going to talk about is meaningful changes. It has to have some relevant changes that makes the game better in some way, be it a UI change, a change in how the gameplay feels, graphic enhancement, or like mods in Skyrim. I think that's really important. A good example of this is the more recent Mass Effect Legendary Edition that updated Mass Effect 1 to be a lot more playable for the new players, because that was often something that held new people back from playing the series, which is a shame because it is an amazing series. So I'm so glad it's out in remastered form. And this allows for new players to come in and still have a good gaming experience, even though it's quite an old game. So that's why I think meaningful changes for a remaster are necessary. Next, it needs to honor the original. So when I say meaningful changes, I mean changes that don't alter the game. It can't be a whole new game. It has to still be that same nostalgic feel that you got when you first walked down your ship in Mass Effect, for example, again. You still need that same feeling. So old players don't feel like, oh, this isn't the game I remember. No story changes. That's a big one. If you wanted to make new DLC, that's not something I would be against, but it would have to still make sense, and shouldn't be just a random add-on. So I think that's a big one, is for the older players who are looking for the best way to play their favorite game of all time. You need to make it so it is still their favorite game of all time. Um, What else? It features all the content from the game. I think that's a really important one. So any DLC that the game had, it's really important that that is included in the bundle. So, for example, the Bioshock collection had all of the single player DLC available with this collection, so it makes it the most definitive way to play the game. That then warrants its price. If you're just buying the base game and again have to buy the DLC, then really you are just paying for the same game again, and then it becomes a bit of a cash grab, and in my opinion, a bit scummy. So I think it's very important that any DLC, single player or multiplayer, I know multiplayer gets a bit iffy if they're not incorporating it in, and that I can understand. But definitely single player, if it has DLC, it needs to be included in this edition. Otherwise, it's not the definitive way to play. If you already own the DLC, why would you get the new one? It just doesn't make sense. So these three things are sort of the backbone of this video. When I'm looking at remasters, I am looking at if they have these three things. There are other categories like graphics and audio and all that sort of stuff that go into it, but these are the three big ones for me. And they all sort of, the rest of the categories sort of slot into these. So yeah, these are what makes a good remaster. So now we're going to go back to the issue that I said earlier. Skyrim. Has it been remastered to death? Okay, so I said Skyrim was my favorite game of all time, or my favorite remaster even, and I stand by that. The special edition was a really good remaster, and I think it holds its own. Mod support was a great feature, and I commend Bethesda for that. However, the amount of re-releases of Skyrim that there are on every new gen console, with a new edition, with a new price point, on every console that's ever existed, even Alexa has one, it's borderline uncountable. And Bethesda, you really need to just stop. You need to commit all of your teams to working on the next stuff. I'm really excited for Starfield, so hop on that. But you guys are just keep releasing this game, and I love this. It's my favorite game of all time. But even I'm like, how many more times can you? When I heard of the anniversary edition, I was like, really? Another thing, and all it is adding all the Creation Club content, which admittedly there is a few cool Creation Club stuff like fishing. I saw that's pretty cool, but is it enough for it to warrant a whole new price point and a whole new game? No. I know you can do the upgrades, but for new players, you have to get this next edition, and I think it's just getting a bit silly now, and it's gone from being a nostalgic experience for old players to being something that makes them feel like the game's a cash grab. Like when I think of Skyrim and it's a million different versions, I'm like, wow, Bethesda just keep milking this cow, don't they? They just won't let this game rest in the legacy, in the halls of amazing games as it deserves, and instead are marketing it and keep releasing it, which is getting more and more people to switch off from it, which I think is really sad and is starting to dishonor the original, in my opinion. So, Bethesda, I am pleading with you. I am asking you, as a long-term fan of Skyrim and someone who loves you and your company, maybe, you need to work on your games. Okay, Fallout 76 wasn't that good. So, if you want to keep me as a fan. Anyway, please, let Skyrim rest in the halls of valor. Let it go to Sovngarde. I can't have another 2 versions. My bank account can't afford it. Please. And on that note, we are going on to the next section, which is going to be a little bit of a negative one. I'm going to see where certain remasters were unsuccessful and why. There's a lot of reasons. Let's explore. So, with most remasters being beloved by older fans and also bringing in new fans, how is it that some of them fall short? It should be a pretty easy win, because what you're doing is taking an iconic game that people love and bringing it further into the modern age so more people can fall in love with it and old fans can replay it on a current gen console, for example. So for companies, it's a good gig, and it's one that usually works out quite well. However, there are and has been quite a lot of unsuccessful remasters for a variety of reasons, from technical issues to company disagreements, I guess. You have a lot of bad remasters. Now, I wanted to explore what made these remasters bad and why the fan bases really didn't like them. So I've taken 3, and we're going to go through them step by step and sort of explain my thoughts on why I added them to the list. Okay, so let's start with the Silent Hill HD collection. Now, how do you take a really beloved series of original games that were made years ago and make them look worse and feel worse? How? Well, let me explain. So, for starters, the atmosphere got a lot worse because in the original games, you have this thick fog around the map that blocks you from seeing the boundaries of the game, and any technical issues that the game had was hidden. It's quite a smart way of getting around the restrictive technology that the company had at the time, and many fans thought it was quite smart. They liked it. For some reason, I don't know why, the remaster did away with that completely. The fog is gone and replaced with a mist. Now, mist sounds fine. The only issue is it's see-through. And if they had made the boundaries look good, then there would be no issue. They didn't. You can see where the joins hook up unevenly. You can see the textures sort of go weird, and it just looks awful. This then ruins the atmosphere that the fog provided. Why they decided to get rid of this great mechanic that was quite smart on the original makers or developers' idea, I don't know. Why? It doesn't make sense. Just keep it in. It's fog. No one cared. Next, the cutscenes were just really out of place. No polish was added to them, so the transition between cutscene and gameplay was just awful. It wasn't seamless at all for no reason. They could have just touched up the characters. It's a remaster. That's the job. You're supposed to polish it up and make it look great, fix bugs, fix graphical issues. That's the point. So so why did you just release it? Money. You wanted quick money. Or did they? Because it was a nice thing for the fans, and I think the company at the time was going through something rough, so they wanted to get back in good graces with the fans to try to do something nice. Well, it backfired, and this was a truly awful remaster. Sorry. Next, we're going to explore Assassin's Creed The Ezio Collection. Now, it follows the beloved character Ezio, who is the most iconic, I think, Assassin's Creed character that Ubisoft has ever created. So why didn't they include Assassin's Creed 1? Did they think no one wanted to play it? Was it just too hard? What made them look at it and go, we don't need to do that. Why? And then they made Assassin's Creed 2, they barely did anything to it. They made it worse. They screwed it basically. Whereas Revelations and Brotherhood got a little bit more love, but why Assassin's Creed 2, the older of the games and the one that should have the most improvements, why did that get shafted? It doesn't make sense. It could only run at 30 FPS on the new consoles, which obviously isn't great, because the point of remaster is to bring it into the new gen, so if it's not taking advantage of that technology, then they may as well just play the old games. And it looks and feels, again, like the Silent Hill remaster, worse than the originals. The characters had really enlarged features for some reason, and the world just looked colorless and lifeless due to graphical decisions made by the developers. Ubisoft really just didn't take enough time to make this into something worth it. They could have had so much potential with this, creating the most loved storyline in Assassin's Creed and bringing it into the modern day for everyone to play could have been groundbreakingly good for them. Everyone loves Ezio. Everyone's played at least one of the older Assassin's Creed games, and I'm sure if it was a good remaster, everyone would have played these ones, and you could keep releasing it with more and more enhancement. You would have had a great foundation, but instead you screwed the pooch. And now you just have a failed remaster and a lot of angry Assassin's Creed fans. But that's nothing new. Well, there's always a lot of angry Assassin's Creed fans lately. Maybe Ubisoft isn't treating the franchise well. You should check out my other video on Ubisoft. I talk about that a bit. Plug. Now, going on to another company that I've talked about a lot on this show, and that is Activision. with the more recent Modern Warfare Remastered. This is less about a failed remaster. I've played it, is awful. It's a really, really bad game for no reason. Anyway, so if you wanted the Modern Warfare version, you had to pay for an extra bundle of that game, which you don't want, just to get this game. Which, annoying, but fine. Until they released it on its own shortly afterwards. Meaning that a lot of fans wasted their money to buy this other Call of Duty that they didn't want when they could have just got the game anyway. So that's bad enough. But what else they did that is classic Activision, and is why this game is on this list, is they didn't include microtransactions. What? That sounds great. No microtransactions? That also doesn't sound like Activision. Bingo. Once the reviews were out saying, oh, there's no microtransactions, this game's really good, they then released microtransactions. So they dodged the public scathing with reviews by adding them in later. That is potentially one of the most scummiest moves I have heard from Activision or any company, even EA. I was lost for words when I found out. That is awful. They also, again, classic Activision, didn't include the DLC maps in the remaster, which if we go back to one of my key categories for a good remaster, this falls out of it instantly. You had to buy it separately and just spend more money. Activision, you could just show some love to these fans who buy your Call of Duty games every single year without fail. They're loyal to you, be loyal to them. If they release this at a cheaper price, bringing this beloved game into the new era of gaming, they would have had so much more credibility. And I think it's a real shame that they threw that away for a simple, quick way to get cash out of a fan base who they should really owe everything to. So, Activision, I'm talking to you now directly. Care about your fans, please. You've been bought by Xbox. Now is your chance to start afresh. Rebuild yourself. Be better. Do better. So, talking about the Modern Warfare Remaster leads us nicely into the next section. Are remasters just made to be cash grabs? Now, this is a very important question when talking about these games, because if the answer is yes, then you have to say, well, why do they exist? Because they really shouldn't, and we should be fighting against them at every cost. And that is why I'm going to say no. If, and only if, they are done for the right reasons. As similar to how I said that there are distinct categories for a remaster to be good, I think there are also distinct categories for a remaster not to be a quick cash grab. And that is why I've made them. And some of them overlap, so we're just going to get straight into them. So, 1. Must have meaningful changes, such as mod support in Skyrim Special Edition. A really meaningful change to the game that added so much to the original experience, especially for console players, and really supported a lot of your longtime fans who have changed and updated your game for you. And I really can't express this enough. This was a great move on Bethesda and offered mod makers a lot of support. And even there's with the Creation Club, Bethesda paid the mod makers to make mods, which I think is a really good practice and is something that should be commended for, even if the Creation Club itself I don't love, but the idea behind it is definitely one that I can get behind. So that's a big one. It must have meaningful changes that don't take away from the original too much. And that is why I think it must also be selling for a cheaper price than a full-priced release. This is because you are not paying for a new experience, unless obviously it's your first time playing, but still. You are paying for a old game just brought back. So they have had to do less work to it, and therefore it should be priced less, in my opinion. Now, if we look at where this wasn't done, we can look at Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which are fully priced on the Nintendo Store. And whilst they are good, and I'm currently playing through Brilliant Diamond at the moment. No, Shining Pearl at the moment. I personally just think it should have been priced less because it is still a remaster. Now, the changes are monumental in that game, and it is almost a whole different experience. So there is times when I'll be like, okay, fair enough. It doesn't need to be priced less. But I still think it would be courteous of the company and is in their best interest and in the consumer's best interest to lower the price. And if companies did that, they have my respect to make a remaster. Next, we're going to talk about how there must be only one remaster. Skyrim. Okay, so like Mass Effect Legendary Edition, that should be the only Mass Effect remaster that comes out. And with the upcoming Life is Strange remaster, they shouldn't then make another remaster in 10 years unless technology is groundbreakingly changed. But they need to just have one. If there's multiple editions and multiple upgrades, then each remaster just gets more and more cash grabby because you're forcing players to upgrade their games when maybe they don't want to. And that is why there has to be only one. There can be only one. And yeah, they're my three big stipulations. There may be more, and I'd be interested to hearing what you class as a key category for if a remaster is a cash grab or not. So put it down in the comments if you have anything to say. Ow! Just banged it against the table. But yeah, we're going to go now onto the next section, which is what allows a game to be remastered. Because we've talked a lot about what makes a good remaster of a game, but we haven't talked about what games deserve to be remastered. And I think there's also some key points there and this sort of links together, because if the game doesn't deserve to be remastered, then they're remastering it simply because it might get them some money, in my opinion. So we're going to do a little bit of exploring. See you in the next section. Future me, over to you. Okay, so now we're going to cover what warrants a remaster. If a game's going to be remastered, I don't think it can just be any game, in my opinion. I think there is three key points that I want to go over. And if these 3 points are met, then companies make a remaster. You have my full support, and I won't be writing a strongly worded letter, because I do that all the time, because I have so much free time. I don't actually, just for a reference, I've never sent a strongly worded letter, but I encourage you to do it. So, we're going to start with the first category, which is the fan base. A fan base for a remaster, fans need to want it. If they don't want it, then what's the point? Because no one's going to buy it. And it's just going to look a bit embarrassing for you. If the fan base wants it and are a strong fan base like the Mass Effect, Life is Strange, Elder Scrolls fan base, then it makes perfect sense to make a remaster. And I will completely get behind any company that listens to the fans, because that's, at the end of the day, who they should be listening to. So if the fan base are going, hey, we haven't had this game in a while, I haven't played it, and you know what, I'd really love to see this brought into current gen, then you absolutely have every right to make a remaster. I think if the fans want it, and that is the most crucial category out of everything I'm going to say, if the fans want it, do it. Because you have a consumer base who are looking for it, and a game that clearly deserves it if its fan base is strong, or a game series, such as in Mass Effect Legendary Editions case. So, that's 1. 2, the game must be at least 5 years old, in my opinion. Generally, if a game's 4 years old, 3 years old, but the graphical abilities of the developing team have changed so much that they can make it a definitive experience, then fair enough. But it has to be at least 5 years old for it to be an amazing remaster, in my opinion. Because if the game isn't 5 years old, then the experience is going to be pretty much the same as the last time people played through it. People aren't going to have matured that much. It's just going to be the same fan bases playing the same game again, and you're just making people pay money for no meaningful changes. Unless, and that's what I mean, you have something that you can add to make it really meaningful change, while still making it the same game, just going back to the beginning, then fair enough. But as a general rule, I think 5 years is a good amount of time to have passed for it to become a good experience, because not only do you have old players coming back and getting the nostalgic feeling of the love for the games that they are playing, you're also getting them having forgotten some of the stuff So when these really cool twists or something happen that they've completely put to the back of the mind and don't remember, bam, they're going to be like, oh my god, I forgot that. That's so great. And then experiencing those moments in a new definitive way is a great way for a remaster to be worth its weight in money. So, fan base must want it, and it should be at least 5 years old. Cool. My final category, and I'm sure there's many more that I could add, but we'd be here all day, is that it has to be the only streamlined way to play this game on this gen. So, for example, I'm not counting if you can play it backwards compatibility on Xbox or PS Now, I think it's called. I haven't looked at PlayStation, because that is a different thing in my opinion. But if it didn't come out on this gen, so it came out on the 360 and you want to make it for the Xbox Series X, perfect. Because there's no easy way to play a 360 game without playing the original 360 game, which admittedly probably runs like shit. Because games are old. But, so in that case, perfect. Remaster away, because there's no other way for your fans to play the game that they love in a new, great way. However, if you release a remaster for the Xbox One, why are you going to do another one for Series X? Because the changes aren't that deep, at least straight away, whilst Xbox One is still a big thing, and especially right now. So I think that's a big thing to consider, is if it's already on the same gen, why are you remastering it? Because likelihood is the changes aren't going to be that monumental. So if the game's out on Xbox One, don't make a remaster for Xbox One. It just doesn't make sense. If you've released the game on Xbox Series X, don't then remaster it a year down the line on Xbox Series X. I think that's a pretty standard rule for most games, but sometimes it happens. So I just want to highlight it. If it's out on the current gen, don't remaster it. If the fans don't want it, don't remaster it. And most importantly, if the game came out a week ago, don't remaster it. Okay, thanks companies for listening. Now I'm sure you've been taking notes and are preparing right now to make the best remaster of your life, and I'm glad about that. Thank you. If you'd like to credit me as the sole reason your game flourishes, then please do. The name is TheTwistedEcho, and I am amazing. So that concludes this section, and I guess it's over to future me to do an outro. Okay, so with the release of Life is Strange Remastered coming out in the next few days, I'm going to be keeping a watchful eye on what companies do with their remasters, and hopefully they handle it better than Activision, because you guys suck. That being said, I am looking forward to the new remaster, and I think it looks like it's done a really good job of bringing the games into the modern era, so I hope that it does do these amazing story-based games justice like the groundbreaking games deserve. I love remasters. I know this seems like I don't really like them and have these really weird obsession with them, but I personally do quite think they're a good thing for the industry. Even if some companies take advantage of that, I think as long as they're done well and have a good reasoning behind it, then they are more than welcome to enter my games library. Hell, I'll probably buy the anniversary edition further down the line when I need that Skyrim itch scratched. And Mass Effect Legendary Edition is a great remaster, and I've loved playing through it. So, yeah, I'm not someone who hates all remasters and thinks if a remaster is made, then it's an instant screw up for the company, even if this video made it seem like that. So, yeah, and if you love remasters and every single one, you're like, yes, another remaster to add to my collection, then that is your prerogative, and I completely support you on your obsession. But if you disagree with anything I've said, put it down in the comments. Let's start a conversation. That's the point of the show. And with that, I am going to be closing. This is the longest one yet, I believe. Look at me with long content. I'm making up for last week's because that was really short. That being said, next week might be filmed in a new location because I am moving to uni, back to Sheffield. So once the show is all set up back over there, I will be releasing the other episode, which I'm very much looking forward to doing. So yeah, with that, I just wanted to say thank you for all of your support over the past month. I hope you've enjoyed me coming back and starting this show. I've loved making the videos for you, and it's been definitely something different, which I think is great for my streaming journey. Streaming and YouTube making, I guess now. So, yeah. Can I call myself a YouTuber? But with that, I will see you next week. Have a great rest of your week, and remember to stay noisy at all times. See you guys in the next one. Peace and love. Goodbye.